Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Peace and love, y'all. This is Brother Ali. This is the Travelers Podcast. You probably already have seen the title for this one. This is a challenging one to record. I want to start by saying I'm okay and my family is okay. We've been through a lot, and I'm happy to share it with the people that support us and the people that have been part of this journey. I've had a lot of highs and lows since we started this podcast, and I really feel and know in my heart that the people that listen to this podcast, you're a special group from the people that listen to me and my music and my friends and my community and my partners. And there's a group of people that listen to our music. I'm so grateful for that. But there's a really special group of people that really show up for this podcast. And I got a chance to meet a lot of y'all. And on the last tour that I did with Ant, excuse me, I caught a little bug. I've been traveling. And so I'm going to clear my throat a lot. I'm sorry about that. I also have some tea here that I'll probably be drinking. Please bear with me. So where to begin? It's been a long journey with my life in general and the purpose of my life. If you listen to this podcast, that for me, the spiritual path and saying something about society and art and culture and music, they're all connected. They're completely inseparable in my life and in my heart. And I believe in truth. This is all about what does it mean to be a human being, to seek meaning, we all affirm that there's something beyond the material world. Everybody has a belief system, and we might not have names for it, and that belief system has, things that we ought to do and practices that we have and things that we consider to be right and wrong, and we prioritize things based on that. And it's really all just linked to the fact that a human being has this heart, has this soul, has this intellect, has this ego. Like I say in my new album, Satisfied Soul, human beings are mysterious things. And so for me, all these things have always been connected. And, from very early on, part of what made me seek all of this out was feeling like an outsider, feeling like an outcast, just because of the way that I look. And experiencing what that really feels like on a heart level, to not be seen as human, to not be seen as part of what's going on, to be born into a family and a society and just like you could completely be excluded from it or feel excluded from it. That was something that I started wrestling with from the time I remember myself. I've never not had that feeling. And that it was Black elders and friends that I'm just like, nobody knows it like them, and they seem to be surviving it beautifully and with so much wisdom and dignity, and and human beings are human beings. So I mean, you see all that human stuff that comes along too. I mean, it's not to like fetishize or make somebody magic, but I mean, you see the resilience and the humanity in people when everything is taken away. In a worldly sense, and not only materially, but just like for people to not know their names and their families, and to not know their language and their lineage, and to not have that be a choice, and to be forced to build a country, the richest country in the world, and then not be able to share in it, and then just constant narratives that you're not smart, and you're not accountable, and you're not moral, and you're not virtuous, or you're not dynamic, and you're scary, and you're angry, and you're over-sexualized, and all the bad things of humanity we associate with you. But then all the things that Black people have created and given the world, it's like we don't even want to give credit for that. It's like Black music, we don't even want to say it's Black music. Well, nobody creates music. When we're talking about Black music, well, no one owns music. Well, I mean, we don't say that for anybody else's culture. Jewish music is Jewish music. Chinese music, Asian music is Asian, Japanese music, First Nations music. You know, everybody's music is their music, except when it comes to what Black people create, which is what inspires the whole world to hold on to a sense of humanity and a sense of hope in what's going on. So, and that's always led me to being outside the box. And like there's probably part of me that feels like a big bad rebel when I do stuff like that. There's probably part of the ego is involved in everything. And I would never deny that about myself, and I do have a certain nature and a certain constitution, and I can be rebellious, and, I can take pleasure sometimes in going against the grain. But it's not just for going against the grain's sake. It's like I'm driven by something very deep in my soul that is very truly who I am. And I believe that it's very truly who human beings are, because it's made me see the humanity in all people everywhere I go. And so that's what it means to me to be Muslim. That's what it means to be, practice the art that I do, to be the world traveler that I've been, to be the advocate, the activist, the community organizer, all of those things that I've done in my life, the family person, the father, the husband, all this good stuff that I do. And I don't only do good, and I make a lot of mistakes, and I mix a lot of my own silliness and a lot of my own personal stuff, just like we all do. Everybody except for it's what the Muslims believe, that the only ones that don't do that are the prophets. Even our saints, even our teachers, they're human. And part of being human, part of the love affair between the creator and the creation, is that Allah made us with the ability to forget him, to deny him, to neglect our obligation to him, to disobey him. Allah created us like that, and told us in the Quran, if you didn't disobey, if you didn't sin, if you didn't make mistakes, if you didn't make a mess, I would wipe you out and replace you with somebody that did. And then they would come back to me and be honest and repent to me and admit their mistakes, and I would forgive them. So like all the messes that we make as human beings, all our mess, like that's part of our love affair with the divine. And it's part of the mysterious secrets of the whole situation. Allah announces to the angels, like he creates all of creation and it's harmonious. And then he announces that he's going to create a Khalifa, meaning something that's going to have the ability to make decisions for itself. And the angels say, well, like, couldn't that be a problem? Couldn't they cause bloodshed and do a lot of damage and make a lot of mischief? And Allah just says, I know what you don't know. And there's a statement that's in what's called the Hadith Qudsi, where Allah says, I was a hidden treasure and I love to be known. So I created creation to know me, and the crown of creation is the human being. And like, what is the love there? Because we can forget Allah, we can neglect, we can disobey, we can dishonor. We have that ability, and a lot of us do that. And on some level, all of us except the prophets have done that. But it's like, you guys also know that when I met my wife, like we were talking within 48 hours about spending our life together, and that's 20 some years ago. And there's just that beautiful moment where you're just crying into each other's face. Like you're just like holding each other and crying onto each other, just like, you didn't even know me and you love me. You have no, like I was a stranger to you. We live in different places. Our people come from different places. Like I didn't even know you, and you don't have to love me, and you love me, and you're about to dedicate your life to me. And here we are 20 some years later with these children, and you know what I mean, living in a different country and all this stuff. Like we live completely amazing lives together. And so much of the beauty of that is like, you didn't have to. And so maybe some of the secret of why Allah made humans the way that he did is that we can forget and we can neglect and we can deny, And I don't say this to disrespect any of there's a lot of people that I love that identify as atheists, and I would never if somebody I know the price I've paid as part of what I'm talking about today. I've paid huge prices to identify the way that I do because of the way that I see the world. I don't expect anybody else to believe it, and I don't want anybody else to expect that I see the world the way they see it. But I respect the way that people identify. I respect the way that the experience that people are expressing. I respect the way people want to express themselves, especially if it feels sincere to me. And so often there are people that identify as atheists that, like, these are good people, and they're people that I admire. There's things about them that I deeply admire, and I look up to them, and I want to be more like them in certain aspects of their character and their lovingness and their creativity and their generosity and their mercy. But a big part of the mess that we make, and then also, we come back and we seek forgiveness from Allah, and Allah loves to forgive us. And really, that's all it is just an acknowledgement that I do need forgiveness, that I have made messes. I've done things that have hurt myself and other people. I've dishonored myself. It's true. And so much of why people don't want to submit is because the ego doesn't want to just acknowledge that I need forgiveness. And another reason why there's a lot of people that believe in Islam, then they see the goodness of Islam and they see the goodness of Muslims. And Muslims aren't perfect. Muslims have a lot of problems. And we're all human beings. We're all people just trying to submit to the truth of it. And we struggle. And our institutions get messed up, and we do things. And I've done all sorts of things that I just can't believe are so stupid. And I've been so wrong. But Islam is a submission to the truth. And I know so many people that believe in Islam. They see the truth of it, but they don't become Muslim just because they don't think they can live up to it. And so for anybody listening that's feeling that way, don't let that stop you. The mistakes that you bring into Islam, there are Muslims that make far greater mistakes than anything that you could ever do. And don't let that stop you. Islam is not a claim that I'm something or that I've reached some. And there's people that say, well, I don't want to dishonor Islam, and I want to come in and be perfect like the Muslims I look up to. None of the Muslims you look up to are perfect except for the Prophet Muhammad himself and some other people around him. But the rest of us, we're all making a lot of mistakes, and it's part of this religion. That is, there's no distinction between saints and sinners. Sinners can be saints, and saints can be sinners. Every saint has a past. Every sinner has a future. And so don't let feeling like, well, man, I'm addicted to this or that, or like I don't know if I can wear that thing or learn that Arabic. I don't know if I can pray 5 times a day. I don't know if I can get sober. I don't know if I can, stop messing with porn or whatever the thing is. Don't let that stop you. A lot of the Muslims that you look up to struggle with some of those things too. Not all of them. And there are Muslims that their lives are so good and virtuous. I know some people like that. I really do. There's people that you look at them and, like, the things they think are mistakes are just even more beautiful than what normal people do. So in any case, I made music about the things that I believe in. First, I want to say that I've never been associated with anything violent. I've never advocated violence. I've never been involved in anything violent, politically, religiously, or otherwise. I've lived in a violent country, which is what America is. I've lived in a violent world, which is the one we live in. Human beings are violent. But the idea that one group of people are more violent than the others is just ignorance, racism, Islamophobia. It's just like that's a type of discrimination. And that's really what like these stereotypes kind of things is like group superiority. So like we look at the way that other people express the ugly parts of humanity, and it's like we feel like they have more of that in them than we have in us. And it's just because it looks different, and we don't understand when they're violent. We don't understand why, but we overlook our own violence in our own group and the violence we do. But other people's violence is absolutely a sin against God, but our violence is understandable and justifiable. Or the people we identify with, their violence is okay. And the same is true for greed, the same is true for lying, and the same is true for all the ugly, low parts of the human condition. But no group of people is more violent than another group. And no group of people is more dishonorable than another group. And, but I've never been associated with anything violence. I've never advocated violence, called to violence, and I'm not a criminal. I'm grateful to Allah that I grew up in the crack era and epidemic, and I had a friend that was murdered in that world. My first friend in Minnesota was killed like that. I've been around a lot of that stuff. I've had family members that were sex workers and all sorts of things, man. I've been around all of that stuff pretty intimately, but I'm grateful to Allah that that was never my lot in life. I've been arrested once for civil disobedience when I was standing up for poor and working families when the banks were foreclosing against them. And there's new laws on the books for homeowners' rights because of that campaign that we did called Occupy Homes. So one time I broke the law and I did some community service, and that's done. But I'm not a criminal. What I do is I make music and speak about Islam and about the reality of oppression and things like that in the world. And whenever I see likeness with other people, I partner with them on that. And so I've traveled around the Muslim world, and around also the European world, and around I've been to much of the world. There's a lot of the world I haven't explored yet, but I've been to a lot of places. And ever since 2007, when Uncle Sam Goddamn came out, the Department of Homeland Security seized money from me just for making a rap song. And ever since then, I've been harassed by them. And then I was invited to Iran with a group of American Muslims and black leaders to talk about Black Lives Matter, and I went. And it was legal to do. That was legal. And and I went there and I spoke, and I felt like they kind of tricked me into performing hip hop on TV, which was illegal at that time, because I think they were trying to show their government that hip hop can be okay. But I was tricked into that. And I left that conference early because I didn't feel like I could trust the people. I didn't know the motives and the agenda of the people that invited me. And that was really hard. My song called Uncle Usi taught me. That was a traumatic time in my life. And then when I came back, the FBI harassed me. I mean, they banged on my door and came to my house and scared my daughters on my birthday in Minneapolis. Every time I travel to this day, I get harassed. When we started the tour with Ant, I flew into Minnesota on election day, and they held me there for 2 hours, asking me the most ridiculous questions, asking me questions that just didn't make any sense, like I literally didn't understand the question. Why do you have 2 computers? Like, I don't know how to answer that question. I just do. Like, I work, and my work requires computers, and I have more than one. I mean, I don't know. Why does somebody who does deliveries have more than one truck? It's like, this is my work. I don't know how to answer that question. Are you going to sell these computers? I don't know. I own them. It's legal to sell them. I don't understand how to answer these questions. Are you here for working, or are you going to visit family? I'm probably going to do both. But if I really don't understand. And just all sorts of crazy stuff. I've been taken off of airplanes. I've been questioned on airplanes in front of the other passengers. I've been searched. My family's been searched. I've had deep searches that are almost a strip search. You know what I mean? Where people are like touching your private parts and putting your fingers in places where you wouldn't want them to do that. And I'm not a criminal. I'm a citizen. And I'm not violent. I'm not dangerous. I just make music and talk about the things that are happening in the world. So my daughter and I just did it. And we moved to Istanbul 4 years ago. And in Istanbul, the political tension in that country is between 2 parties, or it's a collection of parties, but basically 2 sides of the argument. One side of Turkey are people who have a really good feeling about having been the home of the Ottoman Caliphate, the last empire. Now we think about the British Empire, and they're not the same thing at all, but the last global united front of Muslims in the world. And it was the Western powers that dismantled them, and they did that in a lot of really tricky and sneaky ways, you know. But that's important for understanding what's happening in Palestine, and really a way that the whole Arab and Muslim world was divided was the undermining of the Ottomans. And so half of the country are religious people and that's their pride, and they feel like caretakers of the world. You know, they harbored the Jewish community when they were being oppressed in Europe. They also harbored other people. They take in refugees, they take in foreigners. It's like this is a hub for the world, and for anybody seeking asylum here, wanting to make life here. You know, we visit the grave of a person. Allahumma salli Sayyidina Muhammad. Which sultan is it? Sultan. Forgive me. There's a lot going on, and I'm forgetting his name at the moment. I hate that I'm forgetting it. I can see his resting place and his mosque in my mind. Maybe it'll come to me in a minute. But one of the great sultans that, you know, wrote a letter to Ferdinand and Isabella, the people in Spain, when they expelled the Jews from Spain. He wrote them a letter saying, you've impoverished yourself and you've enriched us. And he passed laws in Turkey saying any Jewish person that comes here is a citizen immediately, and you have to rent from them, buy from them, sell to them, rent to them. You have to do business with them, incorporate them completely. And there's still synagogues in Turkey and formerly Jewish neighborhoods. You know what I mean? A lot of the Jewish community moved and they went to other places. But there's a lot of the global Jewish community that lived in Istanbul for a while, and the Ottomans protected them. You know, and this is something that they're very proud of. Now, Turkey was never colonized from outside, and it was the founder of the republic, the nation state of Turkey, who defended them militarily. And he was a secularist. He was a deep secularist. And so a lot of the people really, that's the way they feel. They feel like Turkey should be a secular place now. And unfortunately, they are very, very nationalist, and they don't like immigration. Though I would say the most extreme amongst them, this is not true for everybody, but the most extreme amongst them, they really blame a lot of the problems of the country on immigrants. And that's just such an easy scapegoat. All countries do this. They blame the immigrants, you know. And I've always been against that. Like I've always said, like human beings are human beings and we belong to each other. And anybody should be able to be in any part of the world that they want to be in. You know, this idea that like, you know, this place we draw lines and we say, well, like, you know, this is America and that's Mexico. Well, why? Well, because we fought a war and we won. So now, you know, if somebody, comes across a border that was just, you know, that's a construct. And this idea that, you know, and so my family and I have been living in Istanbul for the last 4 years. We've been there legally the whole time. We've done everything right. We've been legal from the minute that we were there. We've filed all the papers. We've paid all of the fees. We make our money in America and we spend it in Turkey, and we still have to pay taxes in America, you know, and we have to apply for residency every year, and they can reject you for no reason. And the struggle is between, you know, the people who are anti-immigration and the people that are for it. And you know, so things have become more tense recently. That tension is like really very strong right now, and in some ways the country is in a real upheaval, and I don't want to go into that. People always say, why don't you speak up about what's happening in Turkey? And the reason for that is that I don't vote in Turkey. I don't pay taxes in Turkey. My audience that listens to my voice is not in Turkey. I pay taxes in America. I vote in America. My audience is in America. And so I speak about, my critiques are self-critiques. And the things that I talk about, I critique groups that I'm part of. I don't critique groups that I'm not part of, because I don't respect that. I don't externalize the problems. When you hear me criticizing or talking about white supremacy, I am a European person of European background. I don't identify with the idea of whiteness, but legally that's what I am. Historically, that's what my family is. When I was 13 and I learned that Malcolm X had said, if white people in America would learn Islam, study Islam, practice Islam, it could help them be human beings again. I believed that. But legally, historically, everything else, if there's something that I think is a responsibility for white people to do, I would like to do that, and I'd like to do it well, and I'd like to do it sincerely, and I'd like to do it completely. That's the way that I feel. And so I critique that group. I don't critique people of color for the way that they do things. I have opinions about stuff, but it's not my place to say that, because I'm historically and legally connected to a group of people that have dominated them and oppressed them for 400 years. There's no denying that. These people that, I hate this woke stuff and I hate this DEI stuff. It's like, all right, I mean, all these human projects have things about them that can be critiqued. But it's like, what about the fact that black people were 3/5 of a human being in the Constitution? What about the fact that the Dred Scott Supreme Court decision said that black people do not have any rights that a white person is forced to acknowledge? That's in the Supreme Court. What about the fact that and we talk about black history like, well, yeah, oppression was in the past. Okay, well, when did it stop? When do you think it stopped? Because in 1963 or 5, like when did Dr. King do the I Have a Dream speech? 63, 64, 65 maybe? People at that time said, he's tripping. Martin Luther King is tripping. That this March on Washington is totally unnecessary. Racism's in the past. Slavery had been abolished for 100 years at that point, 1865 to 1965. They're like, that's been 100 years ago. Okay, well, when do you think it ended? Because in 1963 or whatever, when Dr. King gave that speech, most white people thought he was exaggerating and that that racism was over. But what, do you think it was over in the 60s when he gave that speech? When do you think it ended? When do you think it ended? Because it didn't. It's shifted, So if you think the solution is the problem and is worse than the problem, it's like, okay, if you don't like woke, whatever, it's so stupid, but you don't like DEI, okay, well, what do you say about the problem? You know what I mean, of these things in society, in America, but people don't have that part. So in any case, I criticize groups I'm in. I talk about men's responsibility towards women. And do women have responsibility to men? Yeah, absolutely. Are there women that are bad to men? Yes. But do I criticize them? No, I don't. Because that's not a group I'm in. I respect self-critique. I don't critique Turkey. I critique America. Now, there are certain ideas that are universal within the human family. This anti-immigrant thing is deeply inhumane. And let me tell you what happened to me and to my family this week. Right now, my family is separated, and to a lesser degree than other people in the world, I'm living as something of a refugee at this moment. Before my last tour, so applying for a residency visa has become a much longer and more complicated process. We applied to extend our residency back in November when I left for the tour. And we applied on time. Our residency visa had not expired. But they haven't even looked at our paperwork yet. And so technically my family is living in Turkey on expired visas, but we have a pending application so you can be there. But then me and my wife both have to travel because we earn our money in America and we spend it in Turkey. We're bringing money into the society, into the country. We pay a premium. We pay the yabancı price, the foreigner price, for our rent. We've been overcharged for rent. We've been overcharged for our children's school. We've been overcharged a lot. I've been overcharged for medical stuff. I know that because when you go in there and you're an American, they give you, they charge you a different price. It's just one of the things about living in somebody else's country when your money is stronger than theirs, and they know it. So it's like there's a lot that we put up with because Turkey is so beautiful. Our life there is so beautiful. I love that place so much. I want to die there. I want my body to be buried there. If I were to die and people wanted to visit Brother Ali's grave, I would like for you to come to Turkey and do it. I want to be buried there. My children speak fluent Turkish. My two little ones are Turks. They eat Turkish food. Sometimes they speak English with Turkish accents. Anybody that's ever lived abroad, you see that in your children. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you went to school, your first day of school. What did you do? Forced. Da, da, da. Like they speak with Turkish accents sometimes. Like my daughter, Turks love their flag. My 7-year-old says, Daddy, I want to be an astronaut so I can put a Turkish flag on the moon. It's like, we love Turkey. But my wife and I need to travel because we earn our money in America. And I need to travel kind of a lot. So what we figured out is that if your residency visa is expired, you can leave Turkey. You pay a fine because you overstayed your visa. To leave the country, you have to pay a fine, and it's not cheap. When you come back, you have a 90-day tourist visa. So you can be in the country 90 days legally. And it's like, inshallah, our prayer is that during that 90 days, our long-term residency visas get approved so that we can stay. So my children can grow up where they've been growing up. So that we can be in this country that we love. If I had $500,000, I could buy a house in Turkey and we'd all be citizens and we never deal with this again. Anybody who wants to give me $500,000, feel free. At this point, I would accept a gift. You know what I mean? But we don't have that. You know what I mean? People think when you rap and you're successful that you're rich, and we're not. We're really not. I have friends that make more money than me. You know what I mean? And sometimes you see their money and it's like, oh, that's more money than I've ever had. But they're still not rich. And they're some of the greatest ever that have ever done this. And I'm not talking about my independent art. I'm talking about celebrities. Very few of my celebrity friends are actually wealthy. I mean, Dave Chappelle's wealthy. He's the only thoroughly actually rich person I know. And I know a lot of A-list people. And I don't count people's money. Dave is so generous. Who knows? I don't count his money. But sometimes that stuff is made public. You know what I mean? And I know how generous he is. But man, Allah preserve Dave and give him and his family all good, and guide us all and give us all the ability to be the best of who we are, and preserve him and preserve his family and his wonderful wife and children. And that's a beautiful person. So my wife and I have each traveled since our visas expired, and we got a 90-day tourist visa. Well, this time I left America, and you guys know that listen to this podcast, my 16-year-old daughter is a big music fan, and she and I have a tradition where we travel and go to concerts together. She hadn't been to America in years, and one of her favorite artists was playing a show in Chicago. And right around the time that I was going back to Minneapolis to teach kids, I was in Minneapolis for a week at Hopkins High School. Shout out to Nora Tycast and to the Hopkins Band and Orchestra program. Hopkins High School was the Minnesota Orchestra. My understanding is that they built their rehearsal facility in a public high school so that they'd have a state-of-the-art place to do their, and they have this amazing band program. There's 7 bands, and Nora Tycast, if I understand properly, is the head of that whole department and the conductor of all those bands. This woman, Nora Tycast, she's dope. And she invited us to come to Minnesota and to be with the students and do a residency for a full week. And I did, and I performed with them. Hopkins basketball program is their big rival is North High. And when I was in high school, I lived in North Minneapolis. I didn't go to North High, but I was in North Minneapolis at that time. So I was kind of like, oh man, I'm working with the rival team, But it was a beautiful experience. And so my daughter came with me, and then It was really busy. A lot of work and a lot of doing stuff and seeing people. And it's also Ramadan, so we're fasting. And then we went to LA. I got to see Merce on his birthday. Um, and I did a speaking engagement at the Majlis in Orange County. People that I love beyond words, Sheikh Muslima and Sheikh Jamal Diwan and Sheikh Fuad and our sister Shireen. It's two couples that run this amazing. I mean, 3 of the 4 of them are Azhar trained scholars, and you talking about women scholars are so important. And Sheikh Jamal, I can speak for him because he says this publicly, is a hip hop head who became a Muslim and became an Azhar trained scholar. Not just somebody like me that loves Islam, and if you don't know any better, you might think I know a lot. I don't know any more than the average Muslim knows, but I know scholars and I hang out with scholars, But I mean, yeah, 3 of the 4 of them are trained scholars, and to have hip hop heads turned scholars and women scholars. And then, the sister Shireen is the wife of Sheikh Fuad. It's these two people that run this program. We had this beautiful night talking about art, being the journey of an artist and the journey of the spiritual path. And shout out to my brother Scarab from Living Legends. He came out. My man Ted came out from the Caravan. I don't want to miss anybody, but people came out and it was beautiful. And then we went to Chicago. I got to see Azhar Usman and some other beautiful people. The comedian and writer and actor Azhar Usman, one of my dear friends. And so it was a busy trip, and we went and saw this concert, and the concert was dope. My daughter's always showing me music that I would have never listened to in a million years, but once I see it, I'm like, oh, this is dope. I understand why you like it. You have a great taste in music, and it makes me so proud, What time is it? Okay, I gotta keep track of the time. We got a flight to catch today. Just amazing. So my daughter and I fly back to Turkey. We had a long layover, so we had a very busy 10 days in America. We fly back to Turkey. It took 2 days to get back to Turkey. We get to Turkey, and they changed the rules, and they did it retroactively and without really announcing it. And so they say that my 16-year-old daughter can't come into the country and that they're deporting her. They say I can come in. My wife and our 2 little ones are in Istanbul at our house. They say you can come, but your daughter is being deported. Here's a piece of paper that says tomorrow this time she flies out. And it's okay, well, where does she go until then? Say, well, you got to get out of this office. They were so rude with us. They were so harsh with us and clearly didn't care. They said, you got to get out of this office. And it's where do we go? And at first they were just going to send her. And it's do you understand what you're saying? This is a minor, and they weren't going to send her back to America. They were sending her back to Amsterdam, which is where our layover was. So you're going to send a minor by herself back to Amsterdam, where she doesn't live? And what's she supposed to do then? Don't you realize that's illegal? And they just weren't listening. And it's okay, well then what are we supposed to do in the next so finally they said, okay, fine, you can go with her. But it's well, what are we supposed to do for the next 24 hours? They said, well, you just walk outside the door of this office, and it's a little corridor where the passport lines are, where you go get your passport checked. There's no stores, there's no restaurants, there's just a public bathroom and so a couple chairs. There's not even benches. And we don't have our bags. They said you'll see your bags when you get to Amsterdam. So we can't charge our phones. You know what I mean? We just had the USB things because we're thinking we're just going to be on the airplane. You know what I mean? And on the airplane you charge your phone with the USB. But we don't have what are you talking about? This is 24 hours from now. What are we supposed to eat? You know what I mean? This is a 16-year-old girl. What if she needs toiletries? You know what I mean? Where are we supposed? What are you talking about, man? And I'm telling him listen, we've got applications. There are applications that we're supposed to be. The only reason that we haven't been approved yet is because your system is backed up. It's been 4 months since we applied. Like, we've done everything we're supposed to do. Her mother lives here. Her sisters are here. I live here. Her family, we live here. They just wouldn't hear anything. And I was being polite. I wasn't getting angry. I wasn't raising my voice. I was just explaining the situation. And he was saying, get out of here. Get out. Are you stupid? He said to me, are you stupid? And it's like, in my mind, I'm like, are you? What are you talking about, man? And there just was this there was like a new incident in Turkey that you can look up if you want to. I'm telling you, though, from the Western media, they're going to present it in a certain way. And, there are problems there, no doubt about it. But, so the secularists were feeling very, very defensive. And that thing that happened, there's major protests in Turkey right now. The event that started all that happened the day that we arrived. And so all that is the backdrop. You know what I mean? So the secularists, the people that don't like immigrants and immigration and feel like that's destroying the country, they're really up in arms. And they're feeling really oppressed and bold. And, at one point I tried to shake his hand and I said, I'm sorry, man. I said, my name is Ali. What's your name? And he said, that's none of your business. Are you stupid? Now imagine I'm here with y'all, with my 16-year-old daughter. And I don't have parents. My parents died years ago. I haven't had parents in 15 years. My mother died in 2002. My father died in 2010. My wife's parents have passed away. I've got a beautiful community that have all offered to help me. And I'm going to tell you something in a minute that's going to make me cry, because it made me cry when it happened. But people have been so beautiful and have always been so beautiful with me and so generous. But I don't have parents. I'm sitting there with my 16-year-old daughter, and they are saying to her, you're not legal in this country and we're going to deport you. Your dad is going to go home and you're going to get deported. And she's sitting there crying, and it's like, what can I do? And then they say, you're going to have to wait in this corridor for 24 hours without food, without a place to sleep, without whatever. So finally, I talked this guy into I know that there's a hotel inside the airport. So I said, look, let us go to the hotel. So he said, and then in that part of the airport, there's restaurants, there's all that stuff. So he says, if you buy your own flights to Istanbul, we'll let you check into the hotel. I had to buy the same flights that they just put us on for free. And then I had to go buy a night and the hotel there is expensive. You know what I mean? So I did it. I did it. So we go to check in and we go to the hotel. And now, mind you, my wife and my two little daughters, who have never been apart from their sister like that before, they're expecting us to come home. And we have to call them and tell them we're not coming home. They told us that she has to stay out of the country for 90 days before she can even apply to come back. So what they're telling us is our family is going to be separated for 3 months. And we don't have anywhere to go. So it's like, am I supposed to be in an Airbnb for 3 months? You know what I mean? Am I supposed to, and what are we supposed to do? How's my daughter supposed to go to school? We don't have anywhere to go. And then in America, the way the administration is now, when we just went to America, y'all, they gave my daughter 4S this time. My 16-year-old daughter. Now, thank God they didn't harass her, but when you have 4S, they have the right to harass you. They check your phones now for American citizens. They check your phones just to see if you've said anything that you don't like. It's not a friendly place for people like us. And so it's like, what are we supposed to do? So we check in the hotel, and from the hotel, we can look out the window and see where the taxis are. That's right there is where the taxis are. That's where we thought we were going to be jumping in a taxi right now to take us home, where my wife and daughters are waiting for us. And we can't walk over where we can see it. We just can't walk over there. So we spent the night in a hotel, and I just so happened to be messaging with a bunch of people. And, the Muslim community is really beautiful. But I just have to say this, that the whole time I held it together pretty good, you know. And I just happened to be messaging with Sage Francis, and and we were, and he is so open and honest with me. This is somebody that I don't know if he still identifies as atheist, but for a long time he was a very outspoken anti-theist. Not only atheist, but like, he made, I think he made a mixtape, or he was on a mixtape or something, with like, where like Christopher Hitchens is just talking horrible about Islam and religion and all this stuff. But it's like, that's my friend. We're unlikely friends in a certain way, but it also makes total sense. But I met him battling him and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of rappers from that time, especially that were in the battle scene, aren't cool with each other. And I just happened, and he was just on tour with Atmosphere, and he just told me straight up how much money he made, because we shared notes on stuff like this. How do you make money on tour, and da 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 da. I just so happened to be messaging with Sage, and told him what happened. He sent me a message right away. He said, "Man, please come stay with my family. You can be here for all the time you need." And he said, "You know how much money I have, and anything you need, it's yours." And I know how sincere that was. And that was the first time I cried, because just the generosity of him saying that. Like, it's kind of like, of course, my Muslim friends are going to say that. You know what I mean? A bunch of people. People, as soon as I started letting people know what was going on, and like my teachers know. So I messaged Dr. Omar Farouk Abdallah, who's like a father to me. Yeah, man. And Dr. Omar is in the Gambia with our teacher, Sheikh Mohammed Jailani. And there are people there visiting for Ramadan. That's where my family was last year during Ramadan. And so they went in and they just say, "Hey, everybody pray for Brother Ali and their family, because, Soul got deported from Turkey, and their family is going to be separated now for months. And we don't know, we don't even know at the end of that month if they're going to allow her back in." And so I just started getting messages from people all over the world. "Stay in my house. I'm traveling right now, but I'll tell you where the keys are. Go live at our house." You know what I mean? There are other people that are like, "Hey, I'm traveling, but my son is 15. And so, because men and women can't be in a house together like that. But he said, my son is 15, so by the Sharia, he's a man. He can, operate as the man of the house, and you can go stay at my house with my wife, and you have food, you have a place to live. You don't have to worry about anything." Like, the generosity of people is just really, really very touching, So during all this time, a dear person that I love to death and admire so much, my brother Nail, who has helped me learn how to recite the Quran, and we were going on Quran walks in the morning before the morning prayer. Him and his family had an almost identical situation, and he said, we went to the Turkish consulate in Chicago, and there's a special permission visa that you can apply for. And he said they got it within 10 days. And so later today, me and my daughter will get on a flight. We're in Amsterdam now, and we're going to go get on a flight to Chicago, inshallah, and we're going to apply for that visa. I have a friend who's a huge hip-hop head, and he has connections in the government. He lives in Turkey. He also loves our teacher, Sheikh Mohammed Jailani. And he said, I'm going to have as many people as I can that are high up in the government call the consulate and let them know that, these are special people, and can we get this expedited? So the other folks that I knew, it took them 10 days to get this visa. And maybe they'll expedite it. I don't know. But we're really in a place where we don't know. I have a tour with DJ Ability starting in a couple weeks. So I'm like, well, maybe my daughter will come on tour with me, The upside is that my daughter is so dope. Like, man, I just love her so much. And she reminds me so much of my wife. And it's funny because I tell my wife sometimes, like, I'm not jealous of how close they are. But when my daughter was little, I was gone a lot. I used to travel way too much. And, I don't feel guilty about it. I'm grateful, that Allah gave me the opportunity to earn and to take care of my family and to do the work that I do. And I'm just I have a wife that I don't know how to explain the feeling of like I have three daughters, and it feels so good to tell them like be like your mom. You know what I mean? I can't teach you how to be a woman, but your mom really can. And it's like they have to get to a certain age before they can even, and I don't know if they'll ever comprehend that like your mom knows all the nightmares that are possible of being a woman. You know what I mean? The stuff that I say about all of that really all comes from my wife. It's her secret, you know. Not secret, and I mean like her. I don't mean like it's a secret like she doesn't tell people. She's a therapist, you know. But like us, there's a reality that we can't put words to. That's what I mean. The secret of her soul, you know, the secret that her soul carries. And so I'm not jealous, but I've always been like, man, you got to have that time with her, you know, and I've always kind of wished I had that. So, you know, we make the most of it. And if she ends up coming on tour with me, it's like, I would love that. And it's funny because I'd be kind of bothering my daughter, like, hey, why don't you learn how to DJ? You know what I mean? Just because I love traveling with her. I love being with her. Like, why don't you learn how to DJ? You know, we can do some shows in Europe together. And she kind of laughs. You know, she doesn't want to be a public person. She's like, I don't want to be on stage. But it's like, I know, but you love music. You'd be a great DJ. You know what I'm saying? Learn how to come be my DJ. So, you know. And one of the things that my teacher, Dr. Omar, told me is he said, you know, your daughter is so good. And like the culture of your family, she's so close to her family. He's like, you know, she's kind of sheltered. And your family is so good. And he said, you know, your wife is so good. And she's so good. Like everybody that knows my daughters, like our old, all of them, they're amazing. But my oldest daughter, the people that know her really know she's so solid and so good and so just like, this is like a kid that like doesn't have to fight the urge to do something wrong or to do something stupid, or like it just never occurs to her to do something bad. You know, it's amazing. And Allah preserve her and make us worthy parents of our children and good guardians, you know, and protect them and give them good, you know. But Dr. Omar said to me, he said, you know, your family is, life with your family is not how the world is, you know. And she's about to be 17, and like this is a good opportunity for her to become a strong woman. You know, she can see how stupid and ugly and scary and dangerous the world can be. And, you know, he's like, she's going through it with you as her father, which is a big gift. It's a tremendous gift. And I just have to say this, man. When you're on a spiritual path and you believe that Allah is the author of everything and Allah's knowledge is divine and it's without beginning and end and it's complete, and Allah has always known everything, and Allah has always known all of the infinite possibilities that could have been, and Allah has always known which one of the possibilities is the best in the ultimate reality, and that's the one that Allah chooses and writes for us. So the idea of satisfied soul is like, I'm satisfied with whatever Allah does with me. You know, there's a saying in Islam that says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Inna lillahi, certainly we're from God, we come from God. Wa inna ilayhi, and certainly to Him, raji'un, we return. And we say that when somebody dies. We say that whenever something happens that's just like, wow, that's not what I would have chosen. But it's like we come from Allah, we return to Allah. And also it's interesting that the passage that I've been studying and trying to memorize this Ramadan in the Quran deals with the martyrs, and it starts with the verse about martyrdom. And it ends with the term Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Hasbunallahu means Allah has accounted for everything. Allah has already accounted for everything. Wa ni'mal wakil, and He's a blessed caretaker. So Allah knows everything, and Allah is taking care of us. And so not only is it okay, but it's like these are the things that when they happen, this is where the openings come from. This is where the roots get laid. This is where the strength comes from. This is where the unshaking faith comes from. because you witness the trepidation, the uncertainty, the sadness, the powerlessness, the whatever, and you get so close with God in those moments, and you're just so certain that like Allah's going to take care of this. Not that you don't have your moments. I'm a human being, so it's like, yeah, I've had moments where I get angry or something like that, but it was hilarious. I mean, this is funny, like funny, nice things happen along the way. So we finally got to the hotel, and I'm looking in. There's a room with all these coffee cups, and my daughter's always making fun of me because I'm such a coffee fanatic. But I go to walk into this room because I'm like, well, maybe there's coffee in there, and bam, slammed my face on it. It was a glass window, floor to ceiling window, and I couldn't see it because I'm partially blind. Bam, smacked my face in it, man. We died laughing. And that was after a long night of crying, you know. So, you know, we came to Amsterdam, and we got to Amsterdam, and we slept for a whole day. You know, we're still fasting and praying and stuff, but like we slept for a whole day. And then we had a second like afternoon in Amsterdam, and so we took a nice like canal tour with the boats on the canal. That was really nice, like a sundown one. It was really nice. And I'm so sorry. Are they called Stupen waffle? The waffle. We got to eat one of those. Fire, amazing. They're so good. And then the number one Muslim group here, like ethnicity, are Moroccans. And man, we went to this Moroccan restaurant. It's called Baladi or Biladi. It's called Biladi. If you're in Amsterdam, check them out. It's called Biladi. It's, you know, so sometimes you go to a restaurant and it's like, this is bussin', and it's like, you know, crazy flavors, and like it's all presented all crazy. This place, and it's funny because Biladi means like people of the it means like people of the land. You know what I mean? Sometimes they say that like in sometimes it's almost like a degrading term or something, like these people are baladi, you know, but it means to be like, and man, it was like home cooking. It was a couple Moroccan people in the kitchen listening to the Quran and making the food. We got chicken couscous and lamb tajim, and it just, I mean, after 10 days being in America, running around, eating all the stuff we can't get in Istanbul, which is not great for you, but like pizza and, you know, stuff like that. Man, they got this thing. Don't do this. I'm not advocating it, but man, there's this chain now called Dave's Hot Chicken that's halal. Ugh, that's a problem, man. You talking about like gain all the weight back. Golly, man, talking about cinnamon toast crunch shakes and halal fried chicken sandwiches and mac and cheese, and oh gosh, that's a problem. Get me out of here. You know what I mean? I was fat 45 years. I only started losing weight the last couple of years. I know how to be fat a lot better than I know how to not be. And I've gained some weight back, but I'm not beating myself up about it at all. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna get back on track, inshallah. I also just had a hernia surgery, as y'all know. That's the other part, is like beginning of Ramadan, I had a hernia surgery. But man, we just sat and ate like real, like home cooked Moroccan food. It was so good. It made me feel so good. It was just so like earnest, like good. And then I had Moroccan mint tea. That was like real, you know what I mean? Like they're back there like steeping it with the mint and the, man, so nice. So today we fly to Chicago. You know, and I have to say, one of the things that I was thinking is that this Ramadan doesn't feel like Ramadan to me. You're not in the, you know, and we don't worship our feelings. We obey and we submit, you know. So we have been fasting, we have been praying. I haven't been able to fast every single day. But you know, there are reasons that a person can, and even maybe sometimes should, break their fast. And so, you know, it's all been like that. But you know, the last couple of years I've been in Istanbul and the Gambia for Ramadan, and it's just, I just worship all day, every day and night, you know. And that's what I would love to do during Ramadan, but this time it just wasn't written like that. I had my surgery, and then we had to travel, And then now this. I thought at least the last 10 days of Ramadan I'd be in Istanbul, but that's not what Allah wrote. But I was feeling a little bit like, man, this Ramadan isn't like other ones. And I have to give a shout out to a brother named Chet in Arizona, who I've known him since he converted to Islam just maybe 2 years ago. And he's somebody that's come into Islam with so much dedication, and he's just so authentic and real and dope. So many people are converting to Islam, and a lot of you guys that listen to this podcast are converting. We're doing shahadas all the time, and there's a big influx of people coming into Islam, and not just with me, and it's not because of me. But Allah gives us the gift of, and you guys that are converting to Islam, give us the gift of letting us be part of it. And you always thank us so much. Thank you so much for teaching me this and that. But it's like, man, you're giving us a gift by just letting us witness you in this moment. It's really beautiful. So, man, I was doing voice notes with this brother Chet, and he said, man, every time Ramadan comes around, like, you guys will remember this one. And that's true. And there are other ones like that. Like, man, one time, me and my family, this is when my son was young and my daughter wasn't fasting yet. But Ramadan was in the summertime and the days were really long. And so, me and my family, I stayed home. We were in Minneapolis still, but we stayed home, and we would stay up at night. So the basement in our Minneapolis house, we kind of half of it was my studio, the other half was like our mosque, our masjid. That's where we prayed. And it's good to have a place in your house where that's for prayer. And so we set up down there, and at nighttime that year during Ramadan, I want to say this is like 2011 or 12. Maybe 2011 or 12. We set up down there, and we would stay up all night, and we would listen to the Quran, a 30th of it in English and Arabic. We would all take notes, and then we'd go over our notes, and we would, eat watermelon and stuff with a lot of water in it. And we did that every single night, and sometimes people would come over, and like do it with us. And we'd pray our nighttime prayers and stuff like that in the house. And and then in the last week we had a big storm, and it knocked our neighbor's tree down, and it knocked all the power out in our house for the last few days in Ramadan. And so to listen to the Quran, we didn't have power in our house for the last few days in Ramadan, and so we had taking cold showers and using candles and stuff like that. And we finished listening to the Quran in the car out in front of our house. And I just remember what it was like that last night, just with the finishing the Quran and just sitting there with the family, just like crying, like, man, this is so beautiful, because like when those things happen, like they create really beautiful meaning and memories and stuff. So yeah, I mean, our plans and like our family being together and all that kind of stuff is just really uncertain right now. And I know there are people that are going through so much worse, and that's also part of like that. This is nothing compared to what the Palestinians go through, but and so many others, and Mexicans and Central and South Americans at the borders in America being separated from their family, and ICE raids and all this type of stuff. Look, man, this anti-immigration thing, if you go and be in multiple countries, and it's so crazy because the Turks that are treating us like this, when Turks go to Germany and the Netherlands and like other places, they get treated like how they're treating us. And it's wrong both ways. It's always wrong. Like the idea that a human being shouldn't be able to live in some part of the earth is just wrong. It's just fundamentally wrong. But it's so easy to just blame the immigrants. And it, I know that it's such a convincing argument. You know what I mean? And when people say the word illegals, That's an extremely dehumanizing. That like you're not like to call somebody an illegal. It's like, man, I don't know how to, I don't know how to be in a conversation with somebody saying something like that. Or like, the immigrants ruined our city, or the immigrants ruined this country, or the immigrants ruined, whether it's in Turkey, whether it's in America, wherever it is, in England. It's like, you really think that? You know what I mean? That means that you've never been in a situation where you don't have a home that feels hopeful to you. And the human family is one, and the earth is where we're supposed to live, is our place as a, I say in handwriting, but the globe so spacious and the Lord so gracious, the cities and borders can't contain us. Allah says in the Quran, if the people say, Allah, we couldn't do what we wanted to do, we were oppressed, they wouldn't let us be good, we couldn't practice goodness. Allah says, didn't I make the earth spacious? People are supposed to be able to travel. The Prophet Muhammad himself, peace be upon him, was an immigrant. His home was Mecca. He was born in Mecca. He was born to an aristocratic family in Mecca, but he was orphaned and he didn't have access to it personally. And then, so he himself, didn't have money, and but he was a noble person. And then when he started his work, they ran him out of Mecca. Not right away. He didn't leave because he was afraid, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But they got an opportunity to build a life in the city that became known as Madinatul Munawwara, or Medina. But before that, it was called Yathrib. And there were a lot of Jewish people in that city. And there was a Jewish community all the way, the whole time he lived there. And, so he was an immigrant. And the Muslims were known as, the Muhajirin, the people that made Hijrah, the people that immigrated. Like, we start our calendar in the Muslim world based on the immigration of the Prophet Muhammad, the migration from one place to another. And then there were the Ansar, the people that welcomed them, and, this idea of these like borders, and we got to keep certain people should stay out just because of the group of people they belong to. It's the height of, and it's the essence of segregation and racism and xenophobia and Islamophobia, this idea that there is a group of people that just because you're part of that group, that you are suspicious, and they treated us like criminals. They treated me and my daughter like criminals, and I know that there are all sorts of people sitting in offices all over the world and in detention centers. Watch season 2 of Mo. My dear brother Mo Amr. Watch season 2 of Mo, and there's a part where he talks about, and in his character gets put in an ICE detention center because he's trying to draw that link between what the Palestinians go through and what Mexicans go through. Mo lived without a country and without a passport for like 30 years. It's really, this stuff is ridiculous, man. It's inhuman. It's anti-human. Like, to be this way is to have these kind of feelings is to say that a human being doesn't mean anything. Humanity itself doesn't mean anything. There are humans that are illegal, and they need to prove their right to be here. And when people say, well, if you're here legally, then listen, I did everything right. My family did everything right. And I know so many families who did everything right. And there are people trying to come to America. The anti-immigrant people that say, well, if you'd be here legally, people want to be there legally. They don't want to be there illegally. They want to be there legally. And it's like, man, it's irrational. Like, the system is meant to try to stop people from, like, you don't think people would rather be there legally? Like, what kind of circular weird logic is that? That like, we're going to make it almost impossible for anybody to come because we really don't want you here. You know what I mean? And especially in America, what in the hell are you talking about? You know what I mean? All y'all came from Europe because you were beat up. You got beat up in Europe and came to America to try to figure something out. You know what I mean? And then had to overthrow somebody that was ruling you. And did it violently. You got the British out violently. And then there was half the country that wanted to leave the other half of the country, and y'all fought that violently. And I was like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? What is this? But now somebody else, but suddenly, if somebody's from Central South America, well, you're brown, you're not white, and we don't really like you. If you're Muslim, we have a Muslim ban. Don't you realize over 1 billion Muslims in the world that are from all different cultures? There's Muslims in China. There's Muslims in Albania. There's Muslims in everywhere. Like, what are you talking about? You just go and ban an entire, like, the largest growing religion in the world too. So, this is what it is to be a human being. This is what it is, and I'm grateful for it, and I'm in good spirits. I don't know if you can tell or not, but I'm in good spirits, and I'm grateful to Allah for everything we go through. I want to hug my wife. I want to hug my babies. I want my daughter to hug my wife. We just want to go home, And maybe that'll be in a few days, and maybe it'll be in a few months, and maybe our whole family has to move out of Turkey. I don't know. Would we come back to America? I don't think so. I just don't know, because we did everything we were supposed to do. And it's been very beautiful up until now. So we're going to leave it there. Shout out to Zakat Foundation for supporting this podcast. They do a lot of good, so help them do it. Go to zakat.org and put something on what they do, because they help people in these kind of situations all over the world. Love you a lot. We have a dope, I'm going on tour with DJ Abilities, and we have a really dope conversation with DJ Abilities, but I keep interrupting it to talk about my surgeries and my deportations and all that stuff I'm going through. I love you a lot. If you're in the last days of Ramadan with us, then may Allah make it good for you. If you're attracted to Islam and you just don't think you're good enough to be Muslim, it's just not true. If you want to be a Muslim, you should be a Muslim. And if you want our help, you should ask us, and we'll help you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.